What is deviance? Deviance is defined as the violation of social or cultural norms and doing what is unaccepted by society. Deviance is everywhere, yet it is not universal. What is considered to be deviant varies within different cultures and societies. What makes something deviant is not the act itself, but rather how society reacts to the individual. This is why something that is considered deviant in our society may be an accepted norm in another. No one human attitude, condition, or behavior will be judged universally as proper or improper by people in all societies. Not all deviance is criminal either. There is both formal deviance, which includes criminal violence such as theft, robbery, rape, and assault, and also the violation of informal social norms such as not covering your mouth when you cough. In informal deviation, the law itself is not being violated but rather acts in a way that is outside of society's standards or popular way of thinking. For example, one day an individual wore his or her summer clothes in the middle of winter and everybody looked at them differently. People generally wear warm clothes and jackets in the winter to keep warm, and individuals who wear their summer clothes before summer are judged because it is socially unacceptable. Deviance is important from a sociological perspective because it explains the acts of individuals in society and helps us understand the structured world we live in. Deviance is also important because it defines for society what is bad and what is actually considered good.
In class, we discussed that deviance is a violation of cultural norms and crime is a violation of sanctioned norms and laws. We discussed that early studies of deviance included Lombroso's beliefs that deviance could be seen through physical characteristics and that people were born criminals. We studied Emile Durkheim's structural functionalist perspective, which states that deviance serves a function in society. We studied symbolic interaction approach, which covered the labeling theory that explains that people pursue and fulfill the deviant labels others assign to them, as well as differential association by Edwin Sutherland, which states that a person has a tendency to conform to the group they hang out with, and control theory by Travis Hershey, which says that people determine their level of deviance based on their attachment to others, opportunities they have, involvement in the community, and their beliefs. Lastly, we touched on the social conflict approach. This focuses on the fact that norms and laws are reflections of what the people who are in power want. The powerful also have resources like money, money, money to resist deviant labels.
Culture plays a large role in the perception of deviance from a society. It is culture that provides a foundation to what is considered acceptable behavior, as it provides a stability and meaning to everyday life. Whatever behavior falls outside of the established cultural pattern is considered deviant. Durkheim called these norms the collective conscience of a society. Social integration is also important to consider. It is defined as the extent to which a person is bound to social life, or alternatively, isolated from it. Social integration is measured by the level of adherence to a set of commonly held values. In addition to culture and social integration, social regulation is important when looking at deviance. This is the extent to which individuals are required to follow the guidelines of the behavior established by the group. When a social regulation is high, the clearer and more certain the norms are that govern social interaction. In most societies, breaking even the smallest norms usually results in some type of reaction or punishment. The higher importance of the norms are elevated to determine what type of punishment or reaction will come as a result.
Deviance can be committed both as an individual as well as a group, but let's focus on individual deviance first. Most forms of deviant behaviors are engaged in by lone offenders or in the company of a few trusted companions. For example, these could be acts of violence such as murders, cybercrime, sex offenses, suicide, and substance abuse, just to name a few. You can see examples of this while watching the news, and they pull up a picture of one creepy-looking guy and they explain what he's wanted for. In 2002, 27,094 incidents involving sexual offenses were reported to the police in Canada alone. As much as deviance happens in real life, a lot of people tend to forget that deviance is just as prominent on the internet. Deviance on the internet includes illicit markets, fraud, and internet communities. Illicit markets include pirating movies and music, access to pornography, and allow people to anonymously operate on the black market with drugs and bodily organs, etc., which are available to almost anyone. They tend to normalize certain forms of deviance as well. Fraud includes travel scams, identity thefts, phishing scams with a PH, and international traveling or dating scams where wealthy foreigners offer big rewards in exchange for a certain service. And internet communities include a place for previously non-expressed subcultures to flourish. Self-harmers, anorexics, and people with sexual fetishes can find a place to openly share their issues. The internet communities is also a good example of what group deviance can look like. Group deviance can be unplanned, spontaneous acts of persons that do not know each other who are drawn together by a similar purpose. Like these internet communities, or such as soccer fans that are outraged by a call the ref made, and so they react by violent or unruly outbursts. It can also be an organized structure, like when you see organized criminal activity, like Brad Pitt and his gang in Ocean's 11, corporate malfeasance, or terrorism. Deviance can serve as uniting a group against the deviant as well as in behalf of the deviant. Let's look at uniting the group against the deviant first. Nothing unites the members of a group like a common enemy. Like that kid no one liked in school because he bullied literally everyone. Yeah, he's that kid. The deviant in a group or society may function as a built-in out-group and contribute to the integration of the group in the same way as do witches, devils, and hostile foreign powers. For example, religious groups with one another as well as non-religious groups can be united against groups that support satanic rituals. Despite the predominance of secular definitions of deviance, the demonic remains a theme recognized in our society. Belief in satanic deviance is, not surprisingly, found in areas with a high degree of religious consciousness, such as the Bible Belt areas of Canada and the United States. In contrast, a group can also be united in behalf of the deviant. This happens when there is an increase in solidarity that results when the members of the group overlook their differing interests to pursue some common task. For example, on April 28, 2015, protesters placed toilet seats on the steps of Parliament Hill on Tuesday as they rallied against the so-called bathroom bill that would prevent transgender couples and people from using single-sex washrooms and change rooms. The people that joined this group to protest put their differences aside to pursue this one goal that they all deemed were important. They wanted to make people aware of the fact that gender identity has little to do with sexual deviance. The protesters are raising awareness for the equality of transgenders and may implement social change because of their group efforts for those seen as sexually deviant in society.
Deviance typically has a negative connotation in our society. However, one university in Oregon has done research into deviant acts that break the norm in positive ways. When we look at deviance without any aspect of criminality, we see that it really comes down to the breaking of social norms. Students at this university were given the assignment to go out and perform random acts of deviance, such as buying the coffee of the person ahead of them in line or offering to pay for a stranger's tank of gas. Most of the time, people felt uncomfortable and would refuse these gestures, but it didn't stop there. The students performing these acts also felt uncomfortable while doing them, showing how anything that breaks social norms, positive or negative, can make us feel uncomfortable and can be seen as deviant behavior. Many of the great innovators of our time could be technically labeled as deviant. Scientific advances, creativity in the arts, great humanitarians, and civil rights activists all share the ability to think differently about important problems or act creatively in ways other people wouldn't. These people break social norms and traditional methods of learning or creating and can inspire others to think differently about the world. The structural functionalist perspective helps us understand deviance because it focuses on the purpose, usefulness, or contribution that deviance makes to the social order. Two main sociologists who contributed greatly to research on deviance within this perspective are Emil Durkheim and Robert Merton. Let's say there's a teenager who lacks the means to gain recognition in a legitimate way, like playing sports. Merton would say that the likelihood of them being attracted to illegitimate means of recognition, like being part of a gang, increases significantly as an attempt to gain for themselves a sense of identity. Merton also developed what is known as the strain theory. This theory looks at deviance in relation to cultural goals and institutionalized means. It labels people as conformists, innovators, ritualists, retreatists, or rebels in order to help understand the cultural and institutional motivations of deviant people. When speaking about criminal deviance, Durkheim said that crime is normal because a society exempt from it is utterly impossible, and he also stated that a 10% crime rate is considered healthy. The structural functional perspective of sociology sees that deviance provides boundaries for a community, which contributes to the community's identity and even serves the purpose to create thousands of jobs within the criminal justice system. Having certain amounts of deviance in a society allows for what is called a safety valve function, which prevents a buildup of discontent by allowing for occasional acts of deviance to take strain off the normative system. There are 4 main functions of deviance according to Durkheim's structural functional perspective. Number 1, deviance reinforces social norms. When a person acts outside of social norms, it serves as a reminder as to why those norms exist in a society. Number 2, deviance encourages and warns of the need for social change. Mass acts of deviance like protests or rallies signal the need for social change and may even prompt governing powers to take action. Individual acts of deviance within a social organization also signal that there could be something wrong with the organization itself. Number 3 is a concept called scapegoating, in which deviant people in a society provide an ongoing group of persons who can be blamed for any ills experienced by the people in society who conform to all the norms. Deviant people in society provide what is known as the contrast effect that makes conformity something special and a source of gratification to take part in, and it brings society together in response to deviant acts. And finally, deviance helps create moral boundaries. How can we know what good is until we have known or experienced the bad?
Deviance can have positive and/or negative consequences for particular individuals in society as a whole. Think of theft. If someone broke into my house and stole my grandmother's wedding ring and sold it, I would be the victim of robbery and experience a personal loss as negative consequences. By selling the ring, an example of positive consequence would be the economic gain for the thief and the society as the transaction took place. Structural functionalism helps better understand deviance because it provides a clear structure as to why people do what they do, and it shows how and why society norms are created and how they can change. Through seeing the world in a structured way, we can look at everything that falls within the structure and then understand the need for social change outside of this one perspective. Structural functionalism does not, however, address everything. It does not explain crimes of passion and hate crimes. Structural functionalism does not provide space for deviance to be something that is perceived instead of just a norm, unlike the social interaction approach that believes deviance and conformity are a result of how others respond to actions, not the act itself. Differential association states that those who spend more time with deviant people end up that way themselves. The structural functionalist does not address deviance as a learned behavior.